So that's good. Nenad gathered in their room there. So hello, Grace and others. Just do some random checking of audio.
Is there any way we can cut out Nenad and not let them hear this?
And the reason being,
I
they're
have
not
to deal with them too
responding.
much.
They aren't responding to you. So, Nenad, can you hear us? Not getting a response from them. So, okay. Randy is able to hear us, so that's good. Good. We're approaching 2 o'clock, but we want to give everybody a chance to join us. So we'll wait a few more minutes. But we have sunshine here today. Sherry, I know you have a lot of things to do. When you're ready, if you can put up the beginning slide. Okay. In the time before we begin, I thought it might be fun to do a little trivia. Who can tell me the individual that Cumming County is named after? And Googling and Wikipedia are not allowed, so we'll just see who might know some of their Nebraska history. If you've been on Cumming Street in Omaha, it is also named after this individual. I had to give Sherry and David a history lesson during our practice session at 12:30. Anybody have any guesses? There's no wrong answers. We often say that here at SCED. So we won't make too much fun of you if you get it wrong, and
Well, I'm
just
going to
let me
be bold
know.
and say Mr. Cumming.
Okay, that's close. So actually, it's named after Thomas Cumming. Back in the territorial days, even before we were a state, yeah, officials such as governors and treasurers were appointed. They didn't even necessarily live here until they were appointed, and then they came to Nebraska. So Thomas Cumming is the individual that Cumming County is named after. He was our first territorial treasurer, and then he served as acting governor on 2 different occasions. He took office as acting governor after a gentleman who died 10 days after he was appointed governor. And then after another governor resigned, he took the position of acting governor in the territory once again. So he was from the East Coast, I believe, graduated Michigan University at age 16. So in kind of a scandalous time in the territory back in the day. He wanted some changes made to the or the territorial capital. So, yeah, so if you want some interesting historical reading, check that out. Okay, so I'm not seeing people join us. We'll wait just another minute or two before we get started. But thanks for letting me share some history with you today. David, were you aware of that information before I shared it with you?
No, I was not.
Okay, you have bigger things to do, right? Okay.
Having a history bachelor's, I should know stuff like that, right?
Well, it doesn't probably come to the top of your mind when you're a mover and shaker in your community. So, Okay, well, I know people will continue to join us, so let me just welcome all of you and thank you for joining us here on the September edition of the HomeNE Learning Network series. We started the HomeNE Learning Network in February of 2018, and we are currently in the 80s, I believe, with webinars that we've hosted over the time frame. So thanks for taking time out of your day to join us. My name is Lori Ferguson, and I'm a community consultant at the South Central Economic Development District here in Holdridge. We serve a 13 county region in central and south central Nebraska. So SCED, as we often refer to ourselves as, is the lead agent for HomeNE, which is a learning network that expands across the state, and it's designed for all people from all across Nebraska. So the purpose of HomeNE is just to bring people together. We want to foster interaction among all of you, engage you in housing challenges as well as housing solutions, and help to build your skills locally. Not everything that is presented may be a perfect fit for your community, but we hope that you will take something that you learn and apply it to your situation. And then we want to also just encourage you. I first met Randy just over, or David approximately 4 years ago at an event in Hastings. And so over time, we've become acquaintances, and he's been an active participant in HomeNE series. So thanks, David, for joining us. And I'm just glad to have you here. Before we begin, would you want to just tell us a little bit about yourself?
So I've been in my position now since April 1st of COVID. When I took this job, COVID hit and I was locked in the courthouse for 90 days. So it was very interesting, the situation that was happening, because from my past experience in economic development in the chamber world, I was used to going out and seeing people and meeting people and getting to know people. And instead, I had to sit in this office and call and try and figure out how to help people through the beginning of COVID. And I think that it may have been the best thing for me, because I learned that I needed to reach out and see if I could help them find ARPA funds, CARES Act, those kind of things. So I was helping businesses left and right. And we immediately started with Give, Get, Grow Cumming County, which was a certificate program that we had to raise $100,000 in less than 60 days. And then we sold certificates for sold them for $50, but they got a $75 gift certificate to the different businesses. And it showed me what kind of desire to have in Cumming County the people had. So that made me feel really comfortable in the position immediately. So
Great, great. So before you get started, I should also add that at the conclusion of today, we'll have a second speaker. Taryn Horn from the Department of Water, Energy, and Environment is going to be joining us to just share about a funding opportunity that's coming available. So David, before you begin also, I'm going to put you on the spot. If you weren't doing economic development, what would you be doing?
playing golf.
That's fair. So, okay. So welcome, and we'll let you get started, okay?
Okay, sounds good. So our lives are puzzles, and in economic development, it's even worse when it comes to housing. How do we figure out ways to make housing work for our community? And what I found through my job here is that we have to take advantage of many programs and try and see how those programs can fit together. And I was just putting some of the programs up here: rural workforce housing, middle income housing, Nebraska Affordable Housing Trust Fund, that sooner or later you'll get an answer on that one, and NIFA tax credits. But there's a missing piece of the puzzle, and I'll get to that later. But Cumming County currently has 3 large projects going on. In Grandview, in Wisner, we have Grandview, which is 32 residential lots and 12 commercial lots. And the only way that could happen was the city was able to TIF the uh, property for the infrastructure, which was almost $3 million. And probably years ago, they started the building there, and they have 3 commercial lots that have buildings on them. One of the lots has a house that's going to be an acreage there. And out of the 32 lots on the other side, the residential, they have 4 houses and a huge duplex. And they already have people living there. So if it hadn't been for the TIF, that would have never worked. One of the other things we have happening in Cumming County is by Bancroft, we have a developer that couldn't get water to an area that he was wanting to develop with 15 acreage lots. And we were able to team up with the developer and Cumming County Rural Water and put together a program to make things work. So you have to get those puzzle pieces together to make things work. West Point has never had a true workforce development until now. Go ahead and go to the next slide, please. So this is a proposed development that's going to go in at 18th and H Road, just a block from the high school and public high school and elementary school. And this is a development that has a lot of moving parts. Kelby Hearn behind this, and he and I worked with about 2 years on trying to figure out how to make this all work. And if you look, the quadplexes, there's 9 quadplexes there, so 36 units. And that's all going to be funded with rural workforce housing funds, revolving loan funds that'll go over and over, be sold to investors. So you have to make use of your funds and make them roll as much. On the left-hand side, you'll see Nebraska Affordable Housing Trust Fund for 4 duplexes. We're still actually waiting to hear if that's been awarded to us or not, but we have $1.4 million, 700,000 of that's matched. So, we continue to look at things like that. The duplexes, home funds, and tax credits. There are 11 duplexes that Mesner Development has been approved. So 22 senior living duplexes that every community needs. And the one thing that we look at on our community is that if we can get seniors to move into the spaces where they can be taken care of, the yards can be maintained, and the houses can be maintained. The current houses that they are living in are the perfect starter homes for our young couples. So it's a win-win situation all the way across. Then we have market rate townhomes that those can be split and sold separately, sold together. And on top of that, we have single family homes down below. The total on this development is 100 units when it's completely built out. And I think that quite a few of the communities in this area would love to have 100 new homes. But that's still not the piece. Go ahead and go to the next slide. So if you look, the senior living duplex, that's one of the actual senior living duplexes that Mesner has already. And that's exactly what they're going to look like here. The single family homes, these are more on the affordable housing side than normally. You can't hardly build anything for $325,000 anymore. So these single family homes hopefully will be in that 3 to 310 area. And there's a possibility that some of those may be built on a modular type. So go ahead and go to the next slide. Now, the quadplexes you saw on the plat, these are actually modular homes in Aurora. And I went and toured the factory, and these are incredible. They are built so well that they can actually ship them down the highway with the sheetrock already in, the wiring already in. It's almost a plug and play type situation. And this one is actually in Schuyler. And when I went through it, I was pretty amazed at how nice they're built and how nice they look. They're going to be a definite asset to our community. The townhomes, these are in Norfolk. It's just giving another option. And if you look at that plat, we actually go from the quads to the duplexes to the townhomes to the single family home. And then south of that are the more expensive homes that are already there. And there's going to be a gap in between. We have to use all of our resources and try and combine them to make things happen. And, you know, that's where uh, organizations like NENED has helped us a lot on getting grants for these projects and helped us work through that. You know, call Lori, get them to put things together for you. That's what they're there for, to help us. We can't do it on our own. We've got things happen together. So, Sherry, go ahead and go to the next slide. This is some of the stuff that we have that is happening in that development. There's 700,000 in match and 700,000 from rural workforce housing funds for $1.4 million. And that's just for the quadplexes to begin with. Mesner Development used home investment partnership funds and to fund the senior living duplexes. Next slide. I was very blessed by our county supervisors. They gave our office $250,000 to use for infrastructure for housing developments in the county. So 150,000 of that is going to go towards the infrastructure in the West Point development. The city of West put up to $250,000 that it'll take them approximately 4 years to recoup just for hookup fees and monthly fees. Of course, we have the 700,000 that our office has put up, and tax increment financing is such a great tool. The city council approved 1.8 million to go towards the developer for the development, and the total cost of developing that property is about 2.4 million. So it's huge. And when the development's completely built out, we have it figured to be somewhere around $23 million worth of property here in West Point. Go ahead and go to the next slide. So the missing piece, in my opinion, is our current housing stock. We forget it, see it deteriorate over years. Taking advantage of houses we currently have in place is more important to me than building new. Go ahead and go to the next slide. This slide says Cumming County has 4,164 total housing units. And if you look over to the right, it says a decrease by 0.1% every year. So you're talking, or over 5 years. So you're talking about 4 houses over 5 years, and that doesn't sound like anything. But if you don't think about it, there's new houses being built. And so those numbers should be going up, not down. The reason they're going down is because they're not maintained, and the houses that are not maintained are just being demolished or vacant, and we need to use that housing stock for the future. Go ahead and go to the next slide. So what we've done here in Cumming County is we've taken advantage of the Federal Home Loan Bank, and I do mean advantage of them. This first time we started with this project, it was 2 weeks before the grant deadline, and I called up Dusty Humphreys at Federal Home Loan Bank, and I said, "Tell me about this." And she told me, "Well, the app due in 2 weeks." I said, "Do you think it can be done?" And she goes, "Yeah, I'll help you." And we did. We got it in at the last minute. and we were approved for $481,000 total. And there's a misprint there. It was 27 projects for that $481,000. So the nice thing is that F&M Bank sponsored us for this, made it happen. We were able to pay F&M Bank a fee of almost $1,500 to borrow the money and have the line of credit. We were also able to put $10,700 into Cumming County Economic Development's account. And you can see the house in the picture. The siding on it was looking pretty old and pretty bad. And so we sided this house. And the nice thing is that after finishing this, it brought a new pride to the owners of the house. They felt like they really liked where they lived again. And the neighborhood, it brought a pride in the neighborhood, and everybody, they are benefiting from this because there's increased value in this house, which increases the value in the rest of the neighborhood. And people don't think about that. But the other thing is, $481,000 has gone into Cumming County's economy. And this was a learning curve for us because there was not a lot of knowledge about this program in our office. And so everything we learned was new. And we have to take advantage of people that know about these programs so they don't make the mistakes we did. I actually was doing a project for a Hispanic couple, really nice couple. I think they had 4 children. I looked at it all over. We did about $16,000 worth of work and submitted the paperwork. When we got it back from the Federal Home Loan Bank, they said they don't qualify. And I was like, what? They said they're over the income limit because the income limit is 80% of the area median income. Well, what I had done is I had put in her net income, not her gross income, and they were at 79%. When you put in her gross income, they were at 85%. So our office had to eat $16,000 and pay for that project. We weren't about to go back and say, nope, you guys have to pay for that. So there is a learning curve to this, and I've made mistakes, and I guarantee you we all have when it comes to stuff like this. So depend on people around you, know what's going on. Go ahead and go to the next slide. So you can see from this slide, we stepped it up a notch in 2022. And we did go to 40 projects, and all across the county, every community has benefited from this. And we went from 481,000 to 744,000. And the nice thing is we made up a little bit of my mistake because with this one, we were able to make $66,000 for our office and still pay $9,000 to F&M Bank for sponsoring the project. And I don't even have to ask. I just walk in and tell them we're getting ready to put in another application, and the F&M Bank doesn't hesitate. They immediately say, yes, we'll do it again. They also commit to giving $500 for 20% of the project, and that's just a gift. So that helps with the funds as well. And if you see this house in this picture, this house has been painted through the program and new roof. There's a total of something like $33,000 in 2 rounds of funds that have gone into this house. And it's just made this house beautiful. And this is a house that's not going to be lost. 90% of the people that we do work for are low income. So they can't afford to do things. And a lot of these people are seniors that are living on less than $1,000 a month in Social Security. And they want to take care of their homes, but they can't do it. And we know what's going to happen if we don't help them. Those houses are just going to be lost. So go ahead and go to the next slide. So the current round of funding that we're on, we have been approved again for 740,000 and another 40 projects. And just this year, we've done over $100,000 in completed work. We have 31 projects going on right now in different stages of completion, but we did not add any of those into what's completed there because those funds have not been reimbursed yet. So we don't consider them completed. We get paid back for them. And if you look at this house, kind of a neat old story because this young couple, and they've got a couple children, they bought their his grandparents' house, and it was out in the country, and had a bunch of dog kennels around it, and it needed some tender loving care to say the least. And we did some work on it previous round, and then this round we put siding on the house, and it's just made the house so much nicer, and they're so happy. I mean, she just thinks we're the cat's meow. And I love going out there and talking to them, and I love being able to help them. Uh, my project coordinator, Vanessa, if anybody knows her, there's nobody that gets happier from helping people than she does. So it's just, uh, I don't think you've seen this house before, but you may have. We we get this warm feeling when we help these people, but there's all sorts of things that we don't even realize when Vanessa and I are doing these projects. There was a couple that we did a project for in December a year ago that was a Hispanic couple, and she could not hardly speak any English. She'd shake her head a lot up and down. What was really cool about this project was her son could speak English and he would translate for us. And they needed a new air conditioner and some windows and stuff like that, and HVAC system. So I called the guy that does our HVAC, and he went out in December and started working on it. He called me on a Friday afternoon. I had to shut down their heating. And I said, "You what?" He said, "When I put my hand on the furnace, I burned my hand." And I went, "Oh my gosh." He said it was directly underneath their steps to their basement. They could have had a fire so easily. So I just shut it down. I said, "Did you explain it to them?" And he said, "Yeah, their son was still there." So he was able to explain it to the son and told them just to use space heaters. I said, "Well, when are you going to put the new HVAC system in?" He said, "I'll be here tomorrow." He actually went out there the next day and had them back online the next afternoon on a Saturday afternoon. And when you got great contractors like that, it makes a world of difference. But later on, I didn't even think about this. I was talking to a lady that does interpretation for us, and she was talking about those people, and she said, "Do you realize you may have saved their life?" And we hadn't thought about that. We just figured we were fixing their house up, but you never know. So next slide. So these are the total numbers that we've done so far. And if you look at the $1.2 million, that's just with the projects we've done so far from this round. When this round that we've had is completely done, that'll be about 1.9 million. And that's all gone into the county and continues to uh, be an asset for the contractors, the people selling the materials, and the homeowners. It makes a huge difference when you look at how people see themselves, see their houses, the pride. It's nice to see people proud of their homes. And the we'll find out in December if we get this year's funds for another 740,000. But if we do get that, that'll total this program at $2.6 million in since 2020, which is huge for Cumming County. Next slide. I guess I talked too fast. Uh, I'd be happy to answer any question anything I can do. Uh, we love what we do, and we love HomeNE because I learn a lot from it. You know, I've learned a long time ago that R&D and economic development is research, rip off and duplicate, and homes are where jobs sleep. So remember those two things if you don't remember anything else.
Okay, thank you, David. So yeah, this is a time to open up your microphones and ask questions of David or enter those in your chat box. I do see a message coming in. Um, Sharon wanted to know that there you've had no problem finding homeowners at the 80% AMI.
You know, I was really surprised when I originally saw that. I thought 80% of AMI, it was going to be like 40 or $50,000 a year. Uh, that's not true. In Cumming County, I think it's almost $70,000 a year for 80%. And it depends, of course, how many are in the family. It can go up to 90 or 100,000 if you have five or six in the family. So it's really not that hard to find.
Okay. Okay, good. That's something that we've run into in years past when the block grant program had owner occupied funding. It was meeting those um, income levels. Cheryl wanted to know about the construction cost of your senior living duplex and the resale price per unit or entire dwelling. And then she's got a couple other questions here. I'll let you tackle that first.
So I am involved with them, but that is the Mesner Development Group. And from my understanding, they will own them when they're done. And so they won't be for sale. I talked to Cliff earlier. I don't know that he'd be against selling some of them, but and I don't know exactly what the price would be on those and what the cost is to build them.
Okay.
I'll learn that as we go along because we're hoping to break ground for the infrastructure here in the next couple months.
Okay. And if Cliff's available, we'll let him maybe um, weigh in on that. What's the square footage and how many bedrooms and baths are in the senior living duplexes?
There's two bedrooms. Go ahead.
They're a two bedroom, two bath, 1,450 square feet with a two-car garage. Um, we're selling them in other communities for 269. Some are 264 and some are 269. And we actually have one community we're selling them with basements for 299. Those are the sale prices. And some of those will be sold, I'm sure.
I'm glad you
Thank
were
you,
on here to
Cliff.
answer that question.
Okay. So kind of speaking about those new developments, it didn't just happen overnight. Somebody didn't just wake up one day and say, let's go build 100-unit development. So can you describe the process, how that came about? What community engagement, participation, how did that come to be?
Well, we've known for years that we needed housing. It was just trying to figure out how to make it work. And when we got our first round of rural workforce housing funds from 2020 or 2021, Kelby Herman agreed to build two duplexes and a triplex for us. And that began the relation between Kelby and I. And we've been talking about doing a larger development since then and trying to figure out where we could put it here in West Point. And we actually have chosen one spot and then it just didn't work. And then we looked at this spot and felt like that it would work. And then he's been in communications with Cliff, and it just happened that applied for different funding, tried to put all sorts of resources together, put the ARPA funds that we had from our office together to make it work. And Cliff Cliff was behind the scenes as far as I went. He was talking with Kelby all the time about the senior living ones. And so that's been something that he and Cliff worked out. And sadly, we lost Kelby in July, but his son has stepped up, great young man, and has taken on the business and decided that he's going to make things happen. And we're happy to have him. And I think with people like Cliff backing him up and uh, the managers that he has on the projects, I think that it's going to move forward and we're going to have great luck with it.
Okay. I have another question for you, but I want to give others a chance to ask a question. Who has something for David this afternoon? Okay, I'll ask my next question. So the Federal Home Loan Bank owner occupied, you've done 3 rounds, waiting on a fourth.
Yep.
Is that annual? Can anybody apply? The relationship with F&M Bank? Tell me more about
Okay.
why they're involved. Yeah, tell me a little bit more about that process. Are there guidelines that you have to follow? Um,
So
yeah, tell me more.
Federal Home Loan Bank is a member organization. Banks are members of the organization, and they have different programs, and their owner occupied program is one of them. Apply for it, you have to have a bank sponsor you or be willing to commit to sponsoring you. And F&M, what they do is they give us a line of credit, which we've had to double since the beginning because my project coordinator, Vanessa, works too hard. She gets things moving too fast. So we went from 100,000 line of credit to $200,000 line of credit. There are guidelines. There are many member banks in the state of Nebraska. The Federal Home Loan Bank out of Topeka is over Kansas, Nebraska, Oklahoma. There's 5 states. Colorado, I think, is one. And it's very competitive. The application is due in the middle of August every year. And something we have learned that's nice is that if we do a project this time on somebody's house and we see that there's a need for more than we can do because we try and stick at about $18,000 average per project, we can come back next year if we get awarded again and say, do you still need this done? And if they do, we can do that on their house again. So we don't have to not work on the person's house. We can continue to work on that person's house and hopefully keep them to where they are very nice.
Okay. Hey, Randall just wants to know if you have a sibling who could move to Benkelman to do the work that you're doing.
I have a half brother that if he moved there, you'd be mad at me.
So
Actually,
we'll let you. Uh-huh.
that brings up a whole nother can of worms. So I am an adopted child. So I'm a chosen child. And I found out at the age of 55 where my biological parents were. And my brother did not know about me until he was 53 years old. So you can imagine we have some fun with that. So
Oh, stories are wonderful. Thank you, David. So Howard's asking you some questions about what are your future plans? Building more units, how many and what type will you build if there are additional housing plans in your future?
well, the once we get West Point moving and going in the right direction, there's a good chance that I will leave it to my project coordinator and decide to go to a beach someplace to retire in the next 2 years. So that'll tell you where I'm probably going to be.
Okay. Okay. Fair, but there are plans to keep growing. Would
Yes.
that be a fair statement? Okay.
Yes.
Because as Sharon often says, activity breeds activity. So once you get the ball rolling, you don't stop. So, okay. What other questions are coming to mind? So, just to clarify, as long as you can find a member bank that will sponsor a community, you can apply to the Federal Home Loan Bank.
Yes, and my project coordinator, Vanessa, has been very good about consulting on applications to help people get it. Uh, I have consulted on a couple applications to try and help other communities, and we have Beamer has a Beamer Housing Authority that is a little different type of application, a lot more complicated, but I help them, and hopefully they'll get awarded this year in December because there's 12 units there that we don't want to lose because they're low income housing. So Federal Home Loan Bank also has a down payment assistance program that you can apply for, and don't quote me on this, but I think it's 12,500 or 15,000 depending on which program, that does not have to be paid back. That's the other thing about it. All of this that we do on our owner occupied rehab is completely free for the homeowners. They don't have to pay for anything.
Okay. Good, thank you. So what else? Any thoughts?
I'm easy to find. You can call me anytime. I'll answer any questions I can.
Okay. Well, as we conclude with with David here, I do want to shift gears a little bit. I see Taryn has joined us. So Taryn, if you're ready, do you want to kind of give us some information about an upcoming grant opportunity that can really be utilized in developing housing?
Sure. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, yes,
Oh,
and it looks like
great.
Jaws is behind
Ah,
you.
yes. Add some humor to these backgrounds. Yes, I just wanted to if anyone doesn't know me, I'm Taryn Horn. I am the Brownfields Coordinator for the Nebraska Department of Water, Energy, and Environment. We used to be the Department of Environment and Energy and DEE. As of July 1st, we are now DWEE. We merged with the Department of Natural Resources. The introduction's out of the way. I just want to let you know about some new grant opportunities that the Brownfields program has. We do have a new environmental cleanup grant. So if you have a property that you want to purchase, but there's some soil contamination and you're a little worried about purchasing it because you don't know if you're going to be able to afford the cleanup costs, we do have some financial assistance now that can help with that. It's not, our pockets aren't as deep as the EPA's. So I know every year the EPA sends out those notice of funding opportunities where you can apply for a few $1,000,000 to clean up your brownfield property. Ours would be more on the scale of tens of thousands. But so if you have a smaller scale project, the grant can be used to help with contaminated soil excavation or stabilization on some of these properties. The eligibility criteria is similar to our other cleanup grant, the asbestos cleanup grant, where it's available to public entities such as local government organizations, nonprofits, county governments, economic development district. So any type of public entity would be eligible for that grant. With the environmental cleanup grant, we do have some eligibility criteria that our asbestos cleanup grant does not have. For the cleanup grant, we would require you to have acquired the property by having satisfied your environmental due diligence before taking ownership. And what that means is you have had to have completed a phase 1 environmental site assessment, basically looking at the property's history, past uses. The reason for that is because in order to be eligible for one of the EPA's brownfields cleanup grants, you had to have satisfied your environmental due diligence before taking ownership by completing a phase 1 environmental site assessment. So we want to be consistent with the EPA's eligibility criteria, and in that way, the two grants can be used together. Like, you wouldn't be applying for an EPA grant wouldn't disqualify you from applying for the state grant, and vice versa. So let's say you wanted to come in for an EPA grant. Sometimes if you have secured funding from another source, that would look favorably by the reviewers of your grant proposal. So if you have, hey, the state environmental agency is offered to give us $75,000 or $75,000 or $100,000 to help clean up this property, that would look favorably by the grant reviewers on your brownfields cleanup grant application to get the larger dollars. Other things about this grant is also the applicant would need to own the property at the time of applying for it. And the reason I'm bringing this up on this webinar, and thank you, Lori, for the invitation, because I want to get the word out as much as I can. The information isn't available on our website yet. We are working on creating a web page for it. But if you were on my email list, you should have received an application form for it already. If you're not on my email list, if you didn't receive that, my email, thank you, Lori, for having my contact information up there. I appreciate that. So, feel free to reach out to me. I will get you a copy of the application form, and feel free to call me if you have any questions about that. The grant is dispersed as a reimbursement. So initially upfront, you would pay for the cleanup costs. You would pay your contractor who excavated the soil or cleaned up the property for you. And then once you submit proof of payment and other required documentations, we would reimburse you. Unlike our asbestos cleanup grant that's capped at $20,000, there's no cap for this one, but it's based on the amount of funding that we have at the time we receive the application. So let's say we only have $100,000 at the time we receive the application. We still have other projects in our queue that we're working on, plus personnel costs, and maybe we're able to give, $25,000 for your project. Maybe other times we have more of money in the pot and we could give 50 or 75 or $100,000. It's all site specific based on the amount of funding we have at the time of receiving the application. And there's also a 20% cost share required of the applicant. And I also wanted to let you know that we also have just released this year as well, a lead-based paint cleanup program and a mold cleanup program. And those programs run similar to our asbestos cleanup program, where we reimburse 50% of the cost up to $20,000 for the cleanup of lead-based paint or mold. And those programs also are not on our website yet. So if you're interested in those, feel free to reach out and I'd be happy to answer any questions or discuss your project with you. And I know I kind of went through that really fast, but does anyone have any initial questions for me?
So Taryn, is this a rolling cycle? Is there an
Yes.
application due date? What do we need to know in that regard?
No application due date. It's a rolling cycle. Funds are generally dispersed, first come, first serve.
Okay.
And
Okay.
of course, with the environmental cleanup grant, there's also, since there's no set cap, that would also depend on the amount of funding too. So.
And in the instances where a phase 1 site assessment is needed, you would be the primary point of contact, correct? And if so, how long does that assessment take if it's required?
Sure. Yes, if you are wanting to buy a piece of property, we always recommend a phase 1. And if you are a local government or another public entity, the Brownfields program can complete those assessments for you for free. So please reach out to me if you need a phase 1 assessment done. And the turnaround time for those depends on our workload. I'd say we just submitted a report for someone who applied back in July. So that turnaround time was about 8 weeks. Right now they're running about 8 to 12 weeks. So 2 to 3 months for the turnaround time
Okay.
for a phase one.
Okay. So for those of you who've been with HomeNE for quite a while, Taryn did a presentation back in January of 2022 about how brownfields can help in housing. Can you maybe just briefly share? I grabbed the pictures that are on the screen from, I forget if it was a report or Facebook,
Yeah, that
LinkedIn. But how can people interested in developing housing tap into this opportunity?
Sure. So a lot of people think home doesn't qualify as a brownfield because a brownfield is like a vacant blighted commercial property, like old gas stations, old manufacturing facilities. But a home can be a brownfield because the true definition of a brownfield is a piece of property where there's perceived environmental concerns that prevents that site from being redeveloped. And so homes, older homes, they have lead-based paint, asbestos, they could have mold issues, and all of those are going to hinder that property from being renovated or even demolished to build a new home there because state law requires you to remove asbestos from any building that's being demolished. So having that asbestos in there can really hinder a project from moving forward. And so the Brownfields
Okay.
program, we can do asbestos testing, lead-based paint and mold testing. All of that is done for free. And then we also have, if mold is found or lead-based paint or asbestos, we also have our cleanup grants that can help defray some of those costs.
Okay. And there's no minimum on those grants or?
For the asbestos, lead-based paint and mold cleanup grants, it's a 50% cost share. So
Okay.
let's say the cost for asbestos removal is $20,000. The applicant would be responsible for 10 grand, and then the Brownfields program would cover the other 10 grand. And that it's
Okay.
capped at 20 grand. So if any project exceeds $40,000, our maximum reimbursement match is $20,000.
Okay. Okay. Does anyone have any questions for Taryn? We've
Clear
got
as
her
mud.
contact information. It's just great to know that there are additional opportunities. I mean,
Mhm.
when you presented in 2022, I had no idea that you could use your funding on structures related to housing. So
Mhm.
yeah, that's good to know. And I do see I have a typo, so it is nebraska.gov for your contact information.
Yeah,
So
I make that same typo so often. Forget that R.
yeah, so okay. So, well, I just want to say thank you to David and Taryn for joining us today. It's been wonderful, and I'm sure it's been great information for our attendees. So, today's presentation by David and also Taryn's from January of 2022 can be found on our website, homene.us. David mentioned previously that he goes back and looks at some of the old hominies, and we greatly appreciate that. So, and then next month, we will be joined by Caleb Pollard. He is the executive director at Valley County Economic Development. So I didn't have an official picture of him just yet. So he is also part owner in Scratchtown Brewery up in Ord. And so I thought this was a wonderful picture of him doing something that he obviously has a passion for. So you'll want to join us on October 16th to hear from Caleb about what they're doing up there incentive-wise and how they're just really progressing in their development of housing as well. So with that, once again, thank you to David and Taryn for joining us. Does anyone have any last thoughts or comments that they want to share?
I will add that David was a recipient of one of our asbestos cleanup grants. So he's
Okay.
familiar with it.
Okay, wonderful. And it was used towards housing or no? Okay.
How is that old law office, David?
No, that was an old law office that we demoed. Uh, and we've sold the property, but nothing has been built on it yet. And I don't think it'll be housing.
Okay. Okay. So just another tool in the toolkit as we try to improve our communities. So thank you to you both. And with that, we'll conclude. And I'll just wish you all the best for the rest of your day. And we'll see you in October. Thank you and have a great day.
Thank you.